Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My beloved brothers and sisters, many times in life you will reach a point where you must make a choice. Do you follow the crowd or do you follow your conscience? Do you choose what pleases people or what pleases Allah? There will be moments when you have to walk alone, not because you are weak, but because you are choosing a path. Not everyone has the courage to walk the path of patience, the path of discipline, the path of sincerity. When you hold on to your faith, you might feel isolated. People may misunderstand you. They may even leave you. But remember, when the world steps away, Allah steps closer. And the one who walks with Allah is never truly alone. Sometimes rising again after falling feels like a battle fought in silence. Nobody sees your tears. Nobody knows your struggles. But Allah knows, Allah hears, Allah understands. And it is in those quiet moments of pain that your heart is being shaped, your character is being purified, and your soul is being strengthened. Do not fear the loneliness of the journey. Fear the emptiness of a life lived without purpose. If you walk towards Allah, every step is recorded, every sacrifice elevated, every difficulty rewarded. And when you finally succeed, when you win your inner battles, when you overcome your temptations, when you rise from your trials, your victory won't need noise, applause, or recognition. Because the greatest victory is the peace Allah places in your heart. So if you must walk alone, walk. If you must rise alone, rise. If you must win alone, win. For the believer never truly walks alone. Allah is with you, guiding, protecting, and strengthening you every step of the way. True strength begins when you refuse to compromise your faith, even if you must stand alone. This principle lies at the heart of a believer's journey, because true faith is not tested when life is easy or when the crowd supports you. It is tested in those moments when you find yourself surrounded by choices that contradict your beliefs. When the voices around you push you in a direction you know is displeasing to Allah, and when the path of righteousness feels empty because very few are willing to walk it. It is in those moments that the weight of your faith truly appears. It is easy to pray when everyone prays, to speak the truth when everyone agrees, to live with values when society celebrates those values. But it takes real courage to stay firm when you stand alone. Many people fear loneliness not because they cannot handle being alone, but because they fear losing acceptance. Human beings naturally seek belonging, and society often convinces you that you must blend in to be valued. But the believer understands something deeper. Dignity does not come from the approval of people. It comes from standing firm upon what is right. When you choose your faith over temporary acceptance, you elevate yourself in the sight of Allah, and that elevation is worth more than the applause of an entire world. Allah looks at the heart, its sincerity, its discipline, and its readiness to sacrifice worldly comfort for spiritual integrity. There will be moments in life where standing firm will cost you friendships, opportunities, and even the comfort of fitting in. You may choose honesty in a situation where dishonesty is easier and widely accepted. You may choose modesty when others mock it. You may choose prayer at a time when everyone around you prioritizes entertainment or luxury. And you may choose patience when those around you react with anger or impulsiveness. At times it will feel like you are swimming against a strong current, but remember that currents only push against those who are moving forward. If you were drifting with everyone else, you would not feel the pressure. The pressure itself is a sign that you are on a path that is higher, steadier, and more meaningful. When you choose not to compromise your faith, Allah strengthens you in ways you do not always feel immediately. Sometimes He places tranquility in your heart that others cannot understand. Sometimes He opens doors for you in silent, beautiful ways. Sometimes He protects you from harms you never even knew were coming. And at other times, He simply builds your character, makes you wiser, purer, more resilient, and more aware of His presence. What you lose from people is replaced with something far greater from Allah. Sometimes it is not external pressure, but internal struggle that challenges your faith. You may find yourself tempted by convenience, desires, or shortcuts that threaten your relationship with Allah. The greatest battles often happen inside the heart. And when you refuse to compromise even when nobody is watching except Allah, that is when you taste the sweetness of faith. That is when you truly feel the honor of being a believer. You begin to understand that true strength is not the ability to overpower others, but the ability to overpower your own weaknesses for the sake of your Creator. People who compromise their values for temporary gains often end up feeling empty because nothing gained through disobedience to Allah can bring lasting peace. But the one who stays firm, even if the world mocks them, carries a light inside their heart that cannot be extinguished. Allah promises that those who remain steadfast, those who stick to the truth with patience, will never be abandoned. If the entire world were to turn away, Allah's support would still be enough. Walking alone for the sake of Allah is never truly walking alone. You are accompanied by His guidance, His mercy, His angels, and His unseen help. The loneliness you feel on the outside becomes a form of companionship on the inside. Your soul finds comfort in knowing that the one who created you is pleased with your effort, even if it is unnoticed by people, and that inner peace is far greater than any external approval. Standing firm also inspires others. Even though you may not realize it, people around you observe your strength, your consistency, your values. Sometimes your silent firmness becomes a source of motivation for someone who is struggling. Sometimes your refusal to compromise gives someone else the courage to return to Allah. You may think you are walking alone, but through your example, you may be leading others toward truth. Life will always present moments where your faith is challenged. Every such moment is an opportunity to prove your loyalty to Allah, to strengthen your character, and to rise above the noise of the world. Every time you choose faith over compromise, you are building yourself into a stronger believer, someone who walks with clarity, purpose, and dignity. So remember, true strength is not measured by numbers or popularity. It is measured by your ability to stand firm when standing firm is difficult. It is measured by your willingness to choose Allah even if you stand alone. And those who stand for Allah in moments of isolation are the ones He raises in moments of honor. Allah walks with those who choose sincerity over popularity, truth over comfort. This is a principle that many people understand in theory, but few truly experience in practice. The world is filled with distractions, noise, and pressures that make it seem as though popularity, recognition, or immediate gratification are the goals worth chasing. Social approval, financial gain, and comfort often lure people away from the path of truth. Yet the believer understands that these are temporary illusions, fleeting pleasures that fade, whereas sincerity, truthfulness, and faith have eternal value in the eyes of Allah. Walking with Allah means choosing what pleases Him, even when it is difficult, even when it is lonely, even when the world does not understand. Sincerity is not something measured by words alone. It is the quality of the heart, the alignment of intention and action. A believer acts not to impress others, but to seek the pleasure of Allah. Every prayer offered quietly in the night, every honest transaction in business, every small act of kindness done without expectation of reward, every restraint from sin when nobody is watching, these are all marks of sincerity. The world may mock, overlook, or undervalue these actions, but Allah sees them, records them, and elevates the person who chooses sincerity over the applause of people. Choosing truth over comfort is another test of a believer's strength. Many people opt for convenience, shortcuts, or compromises because the path of truth appears difficult or isolating. To speak the truth can invite criticism, ridicule, or rejection. To act justly may mean giving up personal gain or enduring hardship. Yet the believer knows that comfort is temporary, while truth has lasting consequences. The discomfort of standing for truth in this world is small compared to the eternal satisfaction of having pleased Allah. Walking with Allah means being willing to endure temporary difficulty for permanent success. It is the willingness to face challenges with integrity, knowing that Allah is aware of every struggle and every effort. The companionship of Allah is the greatest support a believer can have. When one chooses sincerity over popularity, one may feel alone in this world, but Allah is closer than the jugular vein. Every step taken in truth, every moment spent resisting temptation, and every act of patience is accompanied by divine support. The believer is never truly isolated because Allah's presence fills the heart with courage, tranquility, and hope. Even when the world seems hostile or indifferent, Allah's guidance lights the path. When the believer relies on Him, the fear of rejection or the need for external validation diminishes. There is a peace that comes from knowing that one's life is aligned with the Creator, and that peace cannot be found in popularity, wealth, or comfort. Choosing sincerity and truth also shapes character. It cultivates patience, humility, resilience, and wisdom. A person who walks with Allah is tested, but those tests purify the heart, refine judgment, and deepen spiritual understanding. Challenges become opportunities for growth. When facing criticism or adversity, the believer learns to respond with patience, to speak with wisdom, and to act with integrity. The believer's life becomes a reflection of divine principles, a living testimony of faith, courage, and dedication. Popularity is fleeting, but character endures. The one who chooses the right path strengthens their own soul while setting an example for others. The reward for sincerity and truth is immense. Allah does not measure success by worldly standards. He does not award value based on appearances, wealth, or the number of followers. Success in His sight is the purity of intention, steadfastness in obedience, and devotion to Him. Even if the believer appears to struggle, even if achievements seem small or unnoticed by the world, Allah's recognition and reward are perfect and infinite. The believer learns that true victory is spiritual, not superficial. It is the internal satisfaction of pleasing Allah, the joy of knowing that every effort, every act of honesty, and every step toward righteousness is recorded and rewarded by the one who is most just and most merciful. The life of the believer is therefore different from the life of someone who chases popularity and comfort. It is not without challenges or moments of loneliness. It is not always understood or celebrated by those around, but it is rich in meaning, purpose, and divine companionship. To choose sincerity over popularity is to align oneself with eternal truths. To choose truth over comfort is to embrace the path of lasting success. And to walk this path with Allah is to know that no matter the trials, no matter the obstacles, no matter the temporary isolation, one is never truly alone. In essence, the believer's journey is a journey of conscious choice. Every day presents opportunities to compromise, to seek approval, or to take the easier route. But the one who walks with Allah chooses differently. They choose the path of sincerity even when unnoticed. They choose the path of truth even when it is difficult. They choose Allah over the crowd, the eternal over the temporary, and divine pleasure over worldly recognition. And in doing so, they discover a strength that the world cannot offer, a companionship that fills every moment, and a success that transcends time. Walking with Allah is not always easy, but it is the path of the believer, the path that leads to peace in the heart, reward in the hereafter, and true fulfillment in this life. Loneliness for the sake of Allah is never real loneliness, it is spiritual elevation. This is a concept that many may struggle to understand because human beings are naturally social creatures. We are conditioned to seek companionship, approval, and connection with others. When we find ourselves standing apart, whether due to our beliefs, values, or commitment to faith, it can feel isolating. But the believer knows that the loneliness experienced for the sake of Allah is different from ordinary loneliness. It is not an emptiness, but a state of spiritual refinement, a stage in which the heart draws nearer to the one who created it. The world may fail to recognize the value of such solitude, but for the believer, it becomes a source of strength, clarity, and divine closeness. True loneliness for Allah begins with a conscious choice. It is the decision to hold fast to the principles of faith, even when it separates you from the comfort of fitting in. It may mean declining invitations to compromise morals, resisting peer pressure, or standing firm in truth while others take easier paths. At first, this choice can feel uncomfortable because it conflicts with the natural desire for social belonging. Yet the believer understands that pleasing Allah holds far greater reward than pleasing people. Every act of restraint, every instance of patience, and every moment of solitary perseverance is recognized by Allah, who never overlooks the smallest of deeds done sincerely. In this way, the loneliness of the believer transforms into a sacred space for spiritual growth. The heart of the believer finds solace in Allah's companionship. While others may leave or misunderstand, Allah never abandons. When one is alone in the devotion, they are never truly alone because the one who knows every secret of the heart is present. This companionship provides a sense of comfort that the world cannot offer. It allows the believer to endure hardship with patience, face trials with resilience, and maintain integrity when the crowd may mock or reject them. In the solitude of faith, the believer learns to hear the subtle guidance of Allah, to reflect deeply on purpose, and to cultivate a closeness that is impossible to achieve amidst distraction and worldly noise. Spiritual elevation comes from the refinement of character during these periods of solitude. When a believer chooses faith over conformity, they are tested in patience, humility, and perseverance. The struggle of walking alone strengthens resolve and sharpens awareness. The heart becomes less attached to worldly recognition and more attuned to divine approval. The believer learns to find contentment in the quiet satisfaction that comes from acting rightly, regardless of whether anyone else notices. This is a profound form of liberation, the freedom to live in accordance with truth without seeking validation from the world. Loneliness for the sake of Allah also brings clarity. When the distractions of social approval, popular opinion, and worldly concerns fade, the mind becomes clearer, the soul more receptive, and the heart more focused on what truly matters. The believer gains insight into their own weaknesses and strengths, their purpose, and their ultimate goal to seek Allah's pleasure. In this state, the trials of life are not merely obstacles, they are opportunities to grow closer to Allah. Solitude allows reflection, meditation, and a conscious evaluation of one's journey. It is in these moments that the believer can purify intentions, strengthen reliance on Allah, and nurture qualities such as sincerity, patience, and gratitude. Moreover, the loneliness of the believer can inspire unseen impact, even when others do not recognize the struggle or the steadfastness. The believer's example leaves a mark. Someone watching from afar may gain courage, someone hearing a word of wisdom may find guidance, and someone observing integrity may reconsider their own choices. What appears as solitude is often a position of leadership by example, silently influencing hearts without the need for acknowledgement or applause. The believer learns that the value of their actions lies not in recognition, but in authenticity and divine reward. The believer also understands that the world is temporary and fleeting, and that true companionship is not always found among people. The relationships that endure in eternity are those rooted in shared faith, righteousness, and devotion to Allah. Loneliness for the sake of Allah is thus a preparation for ultimate companionship in the hereafter, where believers are reunited with those who stood firm in faith, where their struggles are recognized, and where their patience is rewarded beyond imagination. In this sense, the solitude of this world is training, purification, and a path toward everlasting fulfillment. Finally, the believer realizes that loneliness for Allah cultivates resilience. It teaches reliance on Him, the source of all strength. When others abandon or misunderstand, reliance on Allah deepens. When challenges seem overwhelming, trust in His wisdom strengthens resolve. When the world appears empty of support, the heart finds satisfaction in the awareness that Allah is sufficient. This resilience nurtures courage, enabling the believer to face trials with unwavering faith and to continue walking the path of righteousness despite difficulties. In essence, the loneliness experienced for the sake of Allah is not a weakness but a privilege. It is an opportunity to draw closer to Him, to purify the heart, and to cultivate strength, clarity, and resilience. It is a spiritual elevation that transforms what the world perceives as isolation into a sacred journey toward divine companionship, eternal reward, and profound inner peace. Rising after hardship becomes easier when you know Allah sees every struggle and every silent battle. Life is full of trials, and no one is exempt from difficulties, disappointments, or moments of despair. Every human being experiences challenges, some visible to the world, others hidden deep within the heart. What distinguishes the believer is not the absence of hardship, but the perspective with which they face it. When one understands that Allah observes every struggle, every tear, every sleepless night, and every moment of internal wrestling with challenges, a profound sense of hope and resilience emerges. This awareness transforms the weight of trials into opportunities for growth and spiritual elevation. Hardship, by its very nature, tests the heart, patience, and faith of the believer. When problems arise, whether in the form of loss, betrayal, illness, or personal setbacks, the natural inclination might be to despair or to question the purpose of one's suffering. However, the believer approaches these moments with the understanding that nothing escapes Allah's knowledge. Every difficulty is seen, every struggle is recorded, and every sincere effort to endure is acknowledged. This divine awareness provides a foundation of hope, the reassurance that no pain, no matter how small or hidden, is meaningless or unnoticed. Knowing this transforms the way a believer responds to trials. Instead of succumbing to hopelessness, they find motivation to persevere because they are conscious that their patience and steadfastness are valuable in the sight of Allah. When hardship strikes, it can feel isolating. People may not understand, sympathize, or even notice the battles one faces. In those moments, the believer recalls that Allah is closer than anyone else, intimately aware of the heart and the struggles contained within it. This realization provides comfort that cannot be found elsewhere. While the world may fail to offer support, Allah's presence is constant, His mercy boundless, and His guidance ever available. This divine companionship is a source of strength that enables the believer to rise after every fall, knowing that their efforts and endurance are meaningful beyond what anyone else can perceive. Rising after hardship also requires reflection and patience. It is not merely about returning to a previous state of comfort or normalcy. It is about growth, learning, and transformation. Every trial carries lessons for the believer. Lessons about reliance on Allah, about the fragility of worldly attachments, about the importance of gratitude, and about the strength inherent in faith. By internalizing these lessons, the believer develops resilience, wisdom, and spiritual depth. They learn that hardship is not a punishment to be resented, but a divine opportunity to refine character, purify intentions, and strengthen their relationship with Allah. The awareness that Allah observes every struggle also instills humility. No matter how successful or strong a person becomes, they recognize that ultimate control belongs to Allah. Success and recovery after hardship are not merely personal achievements, but the results of divine support and guidance. This understanding fosters gratitude, reliance, and submission to Allah's wisdom, even when outcomes differ from expectations. The believer realizes that the journey through hardship is as significant as the outcome, and that patience, sincerity, and trust in Allah are the true measures of success. Another aspect of rising after hardship with this awareness is the motivation to act with integrity and steadfastness. When a believer knows that Allah witnesses every effort and struggle, they strive to maintain righteousness even in the face of adversity. They do not compromise principles or values for temporary relief or convenience. Instead, they endure challenges with dignity, knowing that their commitment to truth and faith is observed and appreciated by the one who is most just and most merciful. This awareness transforms hardship from a burden into a path of moral and spiritual elevation. The believer also understands that divine timing plays a crucial role in the process of rising after hardship. Immediate solutions or relief are not always granted, but the promise of Allah's justice and reward is certain. Every trial is temporary and every struggle has its appointed end. By trusting in Allah's timing, the believer gains patience, endurance, and the ability to navigate difficulties without despair. Even when progress seems slow or unseen, the awareness of Allah's observation strengthens resolve and sustains hope. Hardship, when faced with this awareness, also encourages empathy and compassion. A believer who has endured silent battles understands the struggles of others. They become a source of support, guidance, and encouragement for those experiencing similar challenges. Their own experiences, framed within the understanding of Allah's observance and wisdom, inspire patience and perseverance in others. In this way, rising after hardship extends beyond personal growth and becomes a means of positively impacting the lives of others. Ultimately, the believer rises after hardship with a heart full of hope, trust, and gratitude, knowing that Allah sees every struggle, transforms despair into endurance, isolation into divine companionship, and difficulty into an opportunity for growth. It allows the believer to navigate life's trials with courage, patience, and unwavering faith. The awareness that Allah observes every silent battle ensures that no effort is wasted, no tear is overlooked, and no trial is meaningless. It is this profound understanding that enables the believer not only to recover, but to rise stronger, wiser, and closer to Allah, turning every hardship into a stepping stone towards spiritual elevation, ultimate success, and eternal reward. Victory is not measured by applause, but by the peace Allah places in the heart of the believer. In a world obsessed with recognition, status, and external achievements, it is easy to mistake success for the accumulation of praise, wealth, or popularity. Society often tells us that winning means being noticed, celebrated, and admired. Yet the believer knows that true victory is far deeper and more enduring than worldly accolades. It is the inner tranquility and contentment granted by Allah when a person acts with sincerity, steadfastness, and righteousness. While applause fades and recognition is temporary, the peace bestowed by Allah remains unshaken by the fluctuations of life. The believer understands that external validation is unreliable. People can misunderstand, criticize, or overlook even the noblest efforts. A life lived solely for the approval of others is fragile because it depends on circumstances beyond one's control. The approval of people can be withdrawn at any moment, leaving the individual feeling empty or unfulfilled. By contrast, victory in the sight of Allah is independent of external factors. It is based on sincerity, patience, integrity, and obedience. When a believer seeks Allah's pleasure rather than human praise, they secure a form of success that is permanent and immune to the whims of society. This perspective transforms the way a believer defines and pursues success. The peace that comes from Allah is not superficial or fleeting. It is a deep sense of contentment that fills the heart regardless of external conditions.